Hey, this is Alex Skolnick of Testament and Alex Skolnick Trio and more. You are listening to the Thunder Underground.
Welcome to episode 273 of the Thunder Underground podcast. Trent and Jason here. And this week, I think it's safe to say that we've got a good one.
Yeah, I mean, to quote Joe Pesci, this is the silver tuna, Marv. That's
right.
The one.
That's right. Alex Skolnick of Testament is here. Is that something you thought we'd be saying?
No, it's not.
We've had on guys from Kiss and Def Leppard and all that, but it's just, I don't know. It just seems like when you think of some of these bands from our youth, it just seems like it just felt out of reach for some reason.
Yeah, I know. Well, it's what we grew up on, but also it's, the quality of it's coming out today from the same guys.
Yeah.
It's just amazing. It's full circle. This came together rather quick.
Right.
So it was definitely something to behold, and it went as we would have wanted it to.
Right. We're going to talk a little bit about Alex and Testament here in a bit and play some music, but first, we got to let you know that we're sponsored by Sunset Tattoo, MedFarm, and DEB Concerts. MedFarm is a dispensary located in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma, at 24683 East Highway 51. We've got a huge selection. You can see it all online at leafly.com. Follow them on their Facebook, MedFarm. It's PHARM. They're on Instagram at MedFarmOK, and their website is medfarmok.com. They've also got a drive-thru. If you call ahead or send them a text or an email or however you want to do it, you can place your order that way, then go right through their drive-thru. And, of course, don't forget to tell them Thunder Underground sent you or mention our name. They'll give you 10% off your first order, which is very cool. And they're also always running other specials, so follow them on their socials. And above all else, they're cannabis with a cause, because 30% of their proceeds are going to build no-kill animal shelters, which is very cool. And like I repeatedly say, there's no other dispensaries around here that are putting a third of their profits towards something that noble.
There's no other nothing.
Yeah, that's true. I'm sure there's some non-profits doing good, but as far as like businesses like that, you don't ever hear that. It's always like 10% or something, which is still great, but I mean, nearly a third of your profits. Yeah. Come on. So call up MedFarm and tell them we sent you. Also, Sunset Tattoo. Tattoo shop right here in Midtown Tulsa. 3146 East 15th Street. Give them a call. Set up a time to go in there. They've been doing this for over 25 years. They've got a ton of experience. They've done a lot of great work. We know Jason knows people personally. We know people personally. I know CJ.
Right.
From Grind has got tattoos from Jake, and you've got family members.
Family members, yeah.
Yeah. Get on their Facebook or their Instagram to see their work firsthand. Their tattoos are done good and proper. They're state licensed, of course. And above all else, they're mother approved. So give Sunset Tattoo a call or a message or whatever you want to do, so you can get in there and check them out and tell them that we sent you. And finally, DEB Concerts, our favorite promoter right here in Tulsa, because they've brought in shows like Saxon, Last in Line, Beasto Blanco, Striper, Junkyard, LA Guns, Warrant, Winger, a long-ass list. Booking shows at the Ideal Ballroom downtown, the BOK Center. Their Poison show should be announced at some point when the rescheduled date will be. We'll let you know when we find out. But coming up August 15th, Dead Metal Society at the Ideal Ballroom with Rocket Science, which is very cool. And then October 23rd, LA Guns will be returning to the Ideal Ballroom. And once we know the openers on that, we'll let you know. Follow DEB Concerts on Facebook. And check out the website, debconcerts.com, for ticket info on those shows. And, of course, any new shows or reschedules that come up, they'll let you know. And, of course, we will let you know as well. DEB Concerts also books the Roadhouse stage at Rocklahoma. So you'll be hearing about that in 2021. Once again, thank you to DEB Concerts. All right, now getting into the nitty-gritty here. Let's play some music before we talk about Testament, I guess.
Definitely.
We're going to play a band right here out of Tulsa. We've played them before, but it's been a while.
And it's very fitting for this episode.
Yeah.
So we figured, fuck it, why not?
Yeah. Got an old school attitude. You know, basically they've been around a couple years now, 2 or 3 years maybe. Blind Oath. And this is their song, Blind Oath. Blind Oath from Blind Oath, keeping in the tradition, you know, there of Iron Maiden or Bad Company. Who else? I know there's 3 or 4
fuck.
obvious ones that I'm forgetting. Black Sabbath.
Right. Anvil.
I completely forgot about that.
Fucking Metallica. I'm pretty sure I have a song called Metallica.
But they never
Ugly Kid Joe.
it.
I really like I really like that subtitled song. That was cool. That band Dawn Patrol. That was a good one. So yeah, you know, lots of good shit.
Yeah, of course. I got confused there for a second because I thought this was real.
I was trying to be funny, but I got you. I got you.
You did.
And that doesn't happen all the time. So good on me.
But anyway, the point is, Blind Oath, it doesn't matter what the song title is because all their songs kick ass.
Yeah, they're fucking great. They were even on, what was it, Good Day Tulsa last year.
Oh, that's
in the
right.
morning. I mean, when you going to see thrash metal on a local morning TV news show?
Yeah.
Fucking love those guys. And this song is on the new Vibrations from Tulsa compilation from Horton Records. It's a great comp. If you get the cassette, it's a pink cassette. It's fucking rad. Is the vinyl pink?
I didn't get it. I don't know.
Well, do you remember if it was or not?
I'm not sure.
Well, all I'm saying is,
so.
Yeah, it's a great comp. A lot of different, diverse stuff on here. And Blind Oath fit right in. So, and they fit right into this episode and what we're talking about. Good thrashy shit. So, fuck yeah.
Yeah. They opened up for Night Demon as well.
Right.
I think more than once. But anyway, they're on Bandcamp. They're on Facebook. So give them a follow, a like. Tell them we sent you.
Get the Bandcamp app. I love it.
Oh, yeah?
Follow bands on that. That's like the best place to do it.
All right. Before we jump into Testament real quick, should we talk about Lamb of God's new album? Because we never did.
We never did.
And this came out a week and a half ago now.
Yeah, I mean, we can.
Or do we really need to?
I don't know if we need to. Maybe it's...
Or should we just save that for the next live stream or something?
Yeah, let's save it for when... I've just put it on and listened to it. I don't even know what the songs are called with, like, Josta and Chuck Billy on it.
Another one of Chuck Billy is called Roots, I think.
Okay, gotcha. I need more structured listening. I mean, I know I love it. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Chuck Billy, since we're talking about Testament, he's kind of been doing guest spots. This is like his third one, I think, in the past year, right? Because, I mean, he did that one with Kill Switch.
Yeah, that's right.
And then he did one with someone else before Lamb of God, I thought. But I should have looked that up first, but it just popped in my head.
Right.
But it seems like anytime he does a guest spot, it's like the best song on the album.
Yes.
But in Lamb of God's case, there's a couple other songs up there. But like I said, we'll talk about that later on.
Exactly.
Titans of Creation is the name of the new album from Testament. It came out I think it was the beginning of April. And I didn't dig through my list, but if it's not my favorite album of 2020 so far, it's the top 3.
Yeah, I agree.
It's definitely, I mean, my top 3 might include Night Flight Orchestra and Body Count.
Yeah.
But I put this a little above Body Count, so I think this is the best metal album of the year so far.
So far, I mean,
yeah.
it's a scorcher.
Yeah.
The vocals, the riffs, the solos, obviously. Testament have just continued, in their kind of resurgence. They've just continued to put out just top-notch metal.
Yeah. I
mean, it's unreal. Like, there's not a clam on anything.
I know. And it's like you said, to continue, I mean, since these last several albums, I mean, it's not like, oh, this one's significantly better than the last one. It's like they're all, like you said, top-notch, like Dark Roots of Earth in 2012, and we had Brotherhood of the Snake in 2016.
That was a great one.
The Formation of Damnation in 2008. It's amazing.
Yeah. And there's so much memorable shit on here. Not just, oh, that's a cool riff, and man, the production is amazing, or whatever. There's melody, and there's hook, and, these choruses that get stuck in your head.
Yeah.
That speaks volumes. It really does.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, the riffs, I mean, there's so many throughout these songs. It's like, where do they just keep coming up with this stuff?
I know.
Throughout all these 35, however long, many years later.
And something that I didn't realize that, because I don't have a physical copy yet on this new record, Alex Skolnick helps out with lyrics. I thought that was really fucking cool.
Yeah. Like I had looked that up and found out there was 2 songs that the lyrics are solely his.
That's great.
And, most of the time that's all Chuck Billy, and then sometimes Eric Peterson's in there as well. But, Eric Peterson, is generally the main songwriter.
Yeah, he's the riffmeister.
And, Alex and Chuck will come in and add stuff sometimes, but of course there's solos and vocals, whatever, that. But I mean, this album just is relentless. And I mentioned this on a live stream, right after it came out, the first 4 songs alone are some of the greatest 4 opening songs in a metal album in a long time.
Yeah, it's insanity.
And going through it, City of Angels, The Healers, what else? Symptoms. This whole thing, I don't have to list all these songs. Just look it up. They're Titans of Creation. If you have not yet, you're missing out. Anyway, Alex talks quite a bit about it here in this interview, so let's just get into it. Here's Alex Skolnick of Testament. Kind of the first thing we wanted to bring up were the Rush videos that you did with Charlie and Raw Diaz. Like, how did that whole idea come together? Who started the idea? And
yeah, I'll give total credit to Charlie on that.
okay,
Yeah, he's been sort of the quarantine video king
right.
lately. He's been cranking out about one a week. It's been pretty amazing.
Yeah.
He had started with just duos with him and Ra. And then when they first wanted to add guitar, they talked to me about doing Rush. And we did a total of 4. And they really took off. It really kind of reached a fan base beyond all of our bands, which was pretty amazing. Especially the YYZ video, which kind of started it all.
Right. And that was kind of one of the things. Was it seems like, Geddy and Neil always seem to get a bit more praise in Rush. How understated do you think Alex Lifeson is to Rush?
Yeah, well, you can't have those songs without his parts. I mean, they're essential. And on some of them, I threw in little bits of my own sound. I tried to keep his signature licks, but I always like a little bit of personality, and not just, especially because I'm a professional player on my own, and it's also it's me playing it as well. But of course, you get the occasional purists, who are just diehard Rush fans that don't want to hear any. But the vast majority were super supportive.
Right.
The most recent one we did, which was Red Barchetta, that one was tough to stray from. That really had to be played note for note, and that one has very specific tones too, so that required a lot of extra work. But I didn't get any complaints about that one. So.
Good.
That's incredible.
Like, how does the process on those Zoom style videos work? Do you guys all perform together live and then work on the video afterwards, or do you all record your parts separately and someone put everything together?
Yeah, we have somebody that compiles all the videos. So it's a little bit like making the record. When we did the YYZ one, it was very new still. It was, the pandemic had just started, and everybody was still in shock and looking for ways to make music. And my phone was ringing off the hook, and then emails with people asking, how did you do that? What platform? And people thought we had this magic platform. We were very secretive about it too. We weren't telling anybody how we were doing. I think now a lot of folks have caught on because you're seeing a lot more of these types of videos. But the way you do it is, it's just like making a recording. You do it in layers. So you're not playing the music all at the same time. But the drums are usually the first instrument, and then each person plays along, and then you film the video, and in our case, I think with most of our videos, if not all, we would film ourselves while tracking the same piece that you were hearing. So I think that's partly what made it extra realistic. A lot of people do these videos, they do the recording, and then they film themselves playing along with the recording, which is fine. Now, it's another way to do it, but I think it's even more effective if you're filming the same music while you're recording.
Right. Kind of a side note to that, have you seen any videos like your guys or any live streams from other artists that you've enjoyed through this pandemic, or is that something that you've paid attention to at all?
Oh, I mean, there's so many. There's just too many to keep track of. Really.
Right.
Yeah, it's almost like a daily thing now. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's more than you can watch. There's a guy I grew up with, Charlie Hunter, who's a great 8-string guitarist, and he's done a lot of these really funky ones. There's another one, Greg Koch, great guitar player, and then another recent one, my friend Phil Demmel, who's the former guitarist for Machine Head. He did one with Steve DiGiorgio, my current bass player for Testament, and Dirk from Megadeth, and they did one of the Black Sabbath songs with Dio, and with violin and keyboard, and it just that was really nice.
Wow, yeah, I hadn't seen that one. I'll look up that.
Geezer Butler himself approved of that one.
That's all you need.
Yeah.
Oh, and then I'll mention one other one I did. I did a couple of Queen songs because Brian May was putting out these clips of himself jamming, and I did one, the song "Hammered to Fall," and Jeff Scott Soto is in that, and he's a friend of Brian's, and sent it to him. And Brian shared it online and specifically noted the guitar soloists, and it was really cool.
I'll have to look that one up too, for sure.
Yeah, I always thought Soto would have been a great guy in that role for, what Adam Lambert and Paul Rogers have done.
Yeah, I think he did at one point. But
okay.
I think they sort of found a home with Adam Lambert.
Yeah. Titans of Creation, came out here a couple months ago, and do you think that the album coming out right before the shutdown due to the pandemic, having the lack of being able to tour in support of it or anything will affect, the album getting out there to fans, or do you think that's kind of not really an issue these days with everything being digital?
Yeah, unfortunately, there's no way around it. Just the excitement that happens when you tour behind a record is not going to happen. At the same time, a lot of people have been stuck home listening to music. So,
yeah.
Right.
So, I think it's sort of a double-edged sword. I think that the record was very well received, and it was very welcome from fans. A great way to help deal with being stuck at home is a new Testament record. Testament records don't come out that often. At the same time, it's always better if you can go out on tour to help promote the record, which didn't happen. But hopefully that will at some point.
Definitely. Well, for this record, and really, I guess it could be a general question, are your solos off the cuff, or are they more thought out, or is it kind of a little of both?
It's definitely a little of both.
Yeah.
I can usually tell when a solo is very worked out, and I'm more of a fan of there being some spontaneous quality.
Yeah.
I could always hear it in the classic Van Halen solos, for example, that even though, he may have worked them out in some form or played it live, you just always got the sense that it happened that way in the studio, and it might happen. And even hearing him live, things would get changed up. So I try a blend. I usually start off the cuff. I record before I even go into the control room. I spend some time on my own and I record some off the cuff solos and then pick out the best parts. And then once I have a solo, which is sort of like a composition, then I don't. I allow myself to improvise within that framework. So I usually will write something out, but I won't stick with it too much. And usually each take I play is slightly different with some recognizable parts. And then whichever one I choose is, the one that comes out the best.
Right. When do you know you're done? As in, like this needs more, or I think this is it. How does the self-editing go?
Well, sometimes that can be really difficult.
Mm-hmm.
There might be a super challenging lick in there that's, you that'll be very impressive for guitar fans, but the rest of the solo might not be as good as the one that is just a little more relaxed and just works better compositionally. So it's often really good to have an outside set of ears.
Right.
Like I've always admired people who can produce themselves. It's a really tough thing to do because it's such a different headspace. But ultimately, yeah, I need to record a bunch of different options and listen to those options. But usually, the final one is the one that has the best qualities and the best combination of qualities. It has to be compositional. It has to fit the song. You also have to be happy with the technique, but it's not. It can't have technique at the expense of all the other qualities.
Chuck is usually credited with, most of the lyrics and the music, and every once in a while you've got songs in there, and there's a couple on this album. Is, Chuck always open to just taking your lyrics as is, or does he ever want to put his own spin on it, or how's that work?
It's a little both. I think, with the song Code of Hammurabi, I really, I came up with the subject matter and the timing of the vocal. I came up with a guide vocal, but for the lyrics, we actually sat down together because he has a pretty good idea of what he likes to sing. And then for the song Symptoms, we tried out a few different things, and then it was tough to settle on a vocal pattern for that. If I remember right, he originally tried writing with Zetro, who he sometimes co-writes with for lyrics, and they've come up with some very good stuff. I think for this song, though, I felt like they were really. It was too. It was very close to the music. It was very almost following the riff, and I was wanting to hear something that more complemented the riffs and was kind of independent of the riffs. So that vocal pattern took a while to write. And actually, I worked on that with Eric as well. And Eric threw some words at me and a couple of the phrases in the vocal pattern. We worked on that together.
Well, having worked in two distinct eras, what do you like about today's technology when it comes to recording an album, compared to the early days?
Yeah, Testament got started just as digital recording was beginning, and it wasn't even in the studios yet. I guess we were at the tail end of the analog era, and I think what was good about that period was that you had to be able to play. It was much harder to manipulate songs in the studio. there was a whole process. I never even learned how to do it, where you would take the tape and move to a whole separate machine and use a razor blade
Yeah.
to slice tape. This is how you would do an edit back in those days. And so while I didn't do that myself, I watched several recording engineers do that. And it was a big deal. You could do edits, but they were a big deal. And I think it was really good to learn how to play and learn how to record in the era where you really couldn't change things that much in the studio. It was much more of a challenge. At the same time, the convenience of the technology is amazing. So I think one of the reasons why Testament had this resurgence, with some really strong sounding records of the last few years, is that the band has this ability to play live that goes back to those days. Yet we now have the the luxury to use the technology, so we can do edits, but we're not dependent on it. And I do think some bands, not all, but some bands that grew up in the era of all this easy to use technology become a little dependent on it. And there are some albums where, to me, it's very obvious that they edited it. Like, I can hear that what they did on the third verse is exactly what they did on the first verse. And I can tell they cut and pasted it. And that's, I don't like, I notice those things. I know not everybody notices those things, but, so I like the convenience of it, but, I like, not being dependent on it.
Right. Well, shifting gears a little bit, maybe going back a little bit, when you set out into the jazz world, was that daunting? Was there resistance, or, maybe a little liberating?
A little of both, and I didn't jump into it right away.
Uh-huh.
I was very realistic about it. This is one of the reasons I kept a low profile for a number of years and just focused on learning to play jazz guitar as best I could. I realized that it's so it requires so much dedication. So I could either just not do it, which is what most people I knew would do, or just say, you know what, okay, I'm dropping everything, and I'm going to 100% focus on this indefinitely for a number of years, and that's what I did. And yes, it was daunting, and there were many times it felt like I was starting over. I certainly got resistance in the metal world because it was kind of considered a crazy thing. It was metal. It was a very exclusive club back then. They didn't just let anybody in, and then once you were in, you were expected to be loyal. And the last thing you would do is play a different genre of music, especially jazz.
Yeah.
Now, thankfully, I think that's changed a lot. I think people. There's a whole new generation of listeners now. They're much more open-minded. They're not as exclusive. There are different artists now that dabble in other music or even play it professionally that also play metal. It's not this big shock, but I think it definitely was. And ironically, the people I felt the least resistance from were, the members of the jazz community that I got to know as I was
Yeah.
doing more and more jazz. Now, maybe um, even within the jazz world, there's so many different circles and types of music and circles that don't necessarily get along. So I can't just say, oh yeah, I got along with everybody and was accepted by, but I was accepted by some real like lifelong jazz people, which was great. And then once I came back to playing metal in like the mid O's, everybody was shocked because at that point I'd been doing jazz for so long. The idea of me stepping back into it was a shock, but I always like to do what's unpredictable.
Right.
And at that point, it was very interesting for me because I had the freedom whenever I wanted to strap on a hollow body jazz box guitar through a vintage Fender amp and play that style and work with piano players and horn players if I wanted to. But I could also play, with a loud metal band, and it was really just, not being limited. I think was really what I wanted.
The opposite side of resistance. When you did those shows early on, did you come across anybody in the crowd that was there just because you were Alex Skolnick from Testament, like any metal guys that came out to the shows?
Yeah, well, that still happens sometimes. I still see metal fans that come when I tour with my trio. Our most recent tour was in Europe last year, but it's fun. It gets them to experience something different. It's a different type of musical experience that some of them just haven't been turned on to. Going to a show where it's not standing room only. There's no mosh pit. You sit at a table. You relax. You listen intensively. You're not distracted by all the commotion of the crowd, and it's just a different way of experiencing music. So sometimes it's fun to see guys show up in a metal shirt, whether it's Testament or Megadeth or anybody else, and they enjoy this different type of experience. And I've seen that often. Sometimes the next time they show up, they look like they fit in. And they look like a patron of the jazz club that just has longer hair.
Right. Talking about the early days again, just a few months ago, Murder in the Front Row came out. Like, what was your thoughts on seeing that completed and your involvement with it and everything?
Oh yeah, I'm just very grateful that this happened. Adam Dubin, who directed the film, he's a great filmmaker, video artist, and he just believed in it. And it's just amazing to see. It's this period of time that spawned a few well-known bands. Testament's one of them. One of the biggest bands in the world, metal or otherwise, is Metallica. They were originally a part of that. But still, those early days are just not that well documented. All you have really are people talking about them in interviews, and just our memories. Now, when the book came out by Brian Liu and Harold O, Murder in the Front Row, there were so many photographs that just instantly, recalled so many memories. For those of us that were there, it certainly took us right back. But the film does it, even more so.
Yeah.
So it's a really great way to not only show the scene that spawned all these bands, but also like those of us who grew up there in that time and place. It's just a great way to share it with somebody who is unfamiliar. It's just that well captured, and all of us who were there just love the film, and we've we love sharing it with people.
Was there anything that anyone else said in the film, or that you didn't know, or that you learned by watching it?
Yeah, well, there were a lot of things I didn't know about about everybody else,
Right.
like everybody else's story. I didn't know that there was the record store in Southern California in the suburbs where James Hetfield would go and order records by mail. That was his version of our place, which was called the Record Vault. And I had been to the Record Vault, but also at the time I'd been there, I didn't know how important it was. I knew, it was this one small store in San Francisco that sold heavy metal records that I'd never seen anywhere else. But I was still in high school at the time, and I didn't know that, Motorhead had been there and done in-stores. I didn't know it was the only store like that.
Mm-hmm.
I figured, this, maybe every city has a place like this. Maybe this is a new thing. I didn't know how rare it was.
Yeah.
And just, finding, people that, I got to know later in life, where they were at that time. Brian Posehn, for example, the comedian. Yeah. I've gotten to know him. He's a big music fan, and he's come to concerts, and I'm a fan of his comedy. But yeah, I didn't know, he was in the audience at some of the shows that we played back in those days, and so hearing everybody tell their stories, it was just amazing.
Of course, one of the big bands from that era was Slayer, and their involvement with that documentary, and then of course you guys touring with them on their final tour. Like, once the live scene picks back up, do you think there'll be any impact from Slayer not being a part of the metal scene, or do you think someone else will just fill that spot and it won't really be affected?
I think things are going to be very different now, and not because of Slayer retiring. Slayer has to be the luck, in a way, the luckiest band in the world.
Right. Yeah.
Right. They retired just in time, just before the whole industry shut down. So I think whatever happens, once concerts start up again, whenever that is, we don't even know when that is. It won't be. It'll be affected by the shutdown much more than by Slayer's retirement.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any reservations about getting back out there, or are you ready when the time comes?
I'm ready when it's safe.
Yeah.
When there's a vaccine and when we can do it responsibly. I'm shocked by people that are clamoring to open up and get back to normal, and people who don't want to wear a mask.
Yeah.
And now you're seeing the rate of people being infected rising like crazy. And it's just, it's pretty shocking.
Yeah.
I don't want to mess with that. I don't want to get sick. I don't want to get anybody else sick. So, we've had pandemics before, not in our lifetimes.
Right.
But they happen every 100 years or so. And then you get past it. So we'll be past it at some point. And once we are definitely past it, I'll be more than ready to get back to live music, but not before then.
Definitely. I guess one last thing we kind of wanted to touch on, your photography, Skolnick's Pics, Instagram, and, I know you've been spotted out at shows sometimes taking pictures of the crowd and stuff like that. What got you started into that, and how's that as an outlet?
Oh, that's been amazing.
Yeah.
That's one of the few things that, well, a lot of things haven't been planned. So yeah, initially when I started on guitar, yeah, I planned to either start or join a band and play rock concerts. So I knew I was going to do that, but just like my interest in jazz guitar came very naturally, and finding my trio, same thing, came very naturally. Finding photography, it was something I hadn't planned. I took some photos on tour, with the phone cameras have gotten better, and as phone cameras have gotten better, professional cameras have gotten much better.
Mm-hmm.
And having traveled so much these last few years, I think that there was already a seed planted to try to like better capture these experiences going to these places. Now, what really pushed me into professional level photography was Randy from Lamb of God, who is a fantastic photographer who can, he's at a level where, I think he could quit his day job if he wanted.
Yeah.
Like he's that good.
Yeah.
And he encouraged me to get a professional camera, loaned me one of his, and I noticed, it's a real difference. It's inspiring too. It's just like when I made a decision to get my jazz guitar playing together, I got a vintage Gibson guitar that inspired me to do it. L5, and it's the same thing. It's like, if you have equipment that inspires you, that I think that helps. It's a really good incentive. So I graduated to professional camera. I took it with me on the last year and a half or so of touring. And I think after about half a year, things really started to come together. And I was just as we were going to places like Kathmandu in Nepal and places I've never been before. But then the traveling stopped and the whole shutdown. At the same time, I live in New York, so I live in a very fascinating place to be.
Yes.
With a photographer. So I've the last few months I've focused on the emptiness out in the streets, going, Coney Island, totally empty. All the bridges, totally empty. And then the last few weeks, social unrest came. So it's been, it's every few days or so I get on my bike and I'll go to a protest and photograph a protest. And they're pretty amazing. I mean, these are some of the biggest protests in the country. So it feels like just in time. I developed these skills like just in time to document history.
Right.
So it's a really cool supplement to what my creative work in addition to music.
Is that something you'd ever consider putting out as a book or something?
Yeah. I have no solid plans, but I started a photography website and already have sold a few prints, which is kind of a new thing, which is really cool that I signed. And the response has been really good. Even I've been getting some great encouragement from photographers that have been doing this a lot longer. And yeah, I plan to continue with it wherever it leads, whether it's a book or who knows.
Well, man, we appreciate you taking the time with us this evening.
Okay, my pleasure. Thanks for having me on, you guys.
There you go, Alex Skolnick of Testament, and of course the Alex Skolnick Trio as well. A huge thank you to Carla from Kid Logic Media, and of course, a massive thank you to Alex for spending nearly 40 minutes there talking to us about all kinds of stuff.
It was badass.
Yeah.
Great stuff.
Yeah, can't ask for more.
Right.
I was thinking about it like actually while we were talking to him, and he was talking about the jazz stuff and people showing up. Remember Alex Skolnick Trio was playing at South by Southwest when we were there?
Oh, God, were they?
But,
Fuck.
like, I went over there. I assume you were with me. Someone was with me. It was one of those years that...
And it was probably packed out to the gills.
Like, the line was, like, around the corner.
Yeah.
And there was, like, no getting in, at least by the time he played, probably, because we just showed up late. But anyway.
Jeez.
And I remember... I think that's why I asked that, because I remember that line. It seemed like half the line was, like, metal dudes, you know?
Oh, probably. Yeah.
And that was probably, 2002, 2004, I don't
Right.
remember, one of those years.
Yeah.
Before he came back full-time to Testament.
Too bad I don't remember that shit.
Well, we didn't see the show, so.
Well, true.
But we have seen Testament multiple times, as recent as, 2018? A couple of the Slayer shows. Man, you remember that time we saw him open for Anthrax in Wichita? That was one of the best shows I've seen.
That was one of the best shows ever, yeah dude. At the Cotillion. That was great.
I think John Tempesta was still on the drums, right?
I think so, yeah. And I remember we got there right as Testament was going on. And we just walked right through there and stood right in front of Alex Skolnick.
Yeah.
You know, watching him play guitar. Yeah, it was a fucking great show.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
Yeah, definitely can't complain about that. And Testament, like we mentioned up front, all their work in recent, like the last 4 albums are spectacular. All their albums, they don't really, there's no low points. There's not a Risk in their catalog. There's not a Saint Anger in their catalog.
No,
Going back, all the great 80s stuff and 90s stuff. So dig through it if you haven't. And like I said, this new album is definitely going to be near the top of our list when we do our best of 2020, I'm sure.
Of course.
Well, if this is your first time listening because you're a fan of Testament, we've had on Dave Elfson from Megadeth, Chris Broderick, formerly of Megadeth. He's with Active Defiance and In Flames now. James Lomenzo used to be in Megadeth. And then we've had on Ted Aguilar from Death Angel.
Yes.
Who else thrash-wise have we had on? I think that might be the only ones from back in the heyday.
Right.
And then, but we've had on bands like, new era bands like, just last week, we had on Joel Grind from Toxic Holocaust.
Right. Battlecross.
Yeah. Insight.
Insight.
I'm sure I'm forgetting something obvious.
Crowbar, if you like Crowbar.
Yeah.
That's a little
I was just trying to think
sludgier, but yeah, I get it. COC,
Yeah, those guys. Prong, Sons of Texas, White Zombie.
Right.
We had on Ivan, who was the original drummer of White Zombie recently. We've had on, all kinds of stuff. Seven Dust, Shine Down, Gene Simmons from Kiss, Vivian Campbell from Def Leppard and Dio. The list is pretty long now because, as you can see, this is the 273rd episode. Last week we also had on a couple guys from the band called Healing the Fray. Used to be in Frank Hannon's solo band. We've also had on Frank Hannon here a couple times, so if you like your melodic rock and your glam rock, we've had on a bunch of those guys as well. So look through everything, soundcloud.com/Thunder-Underground, Google Music, iTunes, most everywhere you can find podcasts except for Spotify. Follow us on all our socials. If you go to thethunderunderground.com, there's links for all of them. Follow us, like us, however that social lets you do. YouTube, subscribe there. We put out a lot of videos. Havoc recently, if you like thrash. About a month ago, we had a review of one of their new album. But yeah, so follow us on all the socials. Share us. We appreciate all that help. Check us out most Thursday nights at 7 p.m. Central on Facebook Live. And yeah, I think that kind of covers all that stuff.
Yep.
All right. Once again, a massive thank you to Alex Skolnick. for talking to us today. And of course, as always, thank you to DEB Concerts, Med Farm, and Sunset Tattoo. Until next time.
Where are you guys located, by the way?
Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
What a place.
with all the fun last weekend, yeah.
All the excitement. Yeah.
Neither one of us were down there, though, so we're...
Yeah.
Glad to hear.
Thunder Underground, y'all.